the rivers and the lakes. But the unseen water below our feet is critically important to life. Also, how do you account for the flow in rivers after weeks without rain? The answer is that there is more to our water supply than just surface water. We are hearing about groundwater depleting at a very fast rate, which is beneath our feet, or there are plenty of water, there's plenty of water in the sky. That is in terms of humidity. So today we are here to discuss with an eminent panelist. That is, the topic for today is, can we save our planet Earth from the next water disaster? So we have with us, we have Mr. Richard Reiki, who's the former CEO of KPMG, and he's the co-founder of Maitri Aquatech. Welcome, sir. Welcome this evening. If you would just wave out, please. So that, yeah, thank you. Thank you. We have Mr. Ramakrishna, founder and MD and a serial entrepreneur of Maitri Aquatech. Mr. Ramakrishna, please could you wave out? Thank you. And of course, we have Mr. Naveen Mathur, who is the CEO of Maitri Aquatech, who worked with several MNCs in India and abroad. On the interviewing side, we have Mr. Ramesh K, who's worked in the State Municipal Water Supply Engineering Department and worked in the infrastructure sector for a couple of years. And last 2 decades, he is with Links Lawrence and Mayo Group. Mr. Ramesh K is the business relationship head for Links Maitri Aquatech. Mr. Ramesh, please could you just wave out? Yeah, thank you. We have Dr. Vivek Mendonca, the group director, marketing with Links Lawrence and Mayo for the last 28 years in the optical division, and now with the Links division, of course. And last but not the least, yours truly, into social service, associated with 7 NGOs in India, and doing work at grassroots level. So without much ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Vivek Mendonca to open this panel discussion. And the first question is from Dr. Vivek Mendonca. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, friends on Facebook Live and our audience on Zoom. My question to Mr. Richard Reiki. Data and statistics show that we are moving towards a huge crisis by 2030. The Third World War could be on water. How can we prevent this disaster? Mr. Reiki, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mendonca. It was for the question, and also want to welcome all the participants, all the people who may be on Facebook Live or who are hearing this. And also thanks Links Lawrence and Mayo for organizing this. I think it's a very, very important subject. I think it's a subject which is closest to everybody's heart. We have had the oil crisis, we've had the COVID crisis, the next we're going to have is the water crisis. So I think you have preempted it to try and see whether we can reduce the water crisis, because as you have said in your question, by 2030, the water crisis is going to loom large on everybody's head.
Right.
So I think the one important point that I want to put across here is that unfortunately the consumption of water has grown double what the population has grown. And this is coming from our affluent lifestyles, the kind of way we live, the kind of food we eat, etc., which is actually added to it. And people are trying to see how they can deal with this situation. I mean, the whole world is aware of it. There are some serious challenges before the government, before the NGOs, before the business community, and before citizens like you and me, who need to also play a very important part in trying to conserve water and get it. So I think the point is, water is a scarce resource. And groundwater is depleting at a very, very fast pace. So if this growing water scarcity is leading to one of the biggest challenges of sustainable development. I mean, we know UN brought up the Sustainable Development Goals. Water is the fulcrum of it. It's right at the base of it. We have had food security. The food security came out very much during this crisis now, COVID crisis. And even countries like Singapore are saying we are only secure up to 3 months. So what do we do? And how do we actually get our food secure? So everybody's now getting their food security together because they don't know when the next pandemic can come and hit them. Like food security, we need water equity. I mean, we have food security on one side, we have water equity on the other side. And this requires each of us to play our part in sharing and ensuring that the entitlements we have in water are used in a way in which we are conscious and we are helping the world in this. So basically ensuring that water is only put to productive use and not for other uses. And I want to put one very important point out here. The water we eat is more than the water we drink. And the water we eat is in terms of the food we consume. You know, if you have rice, if you have some of those which are very high, you're actually consuming water. And I just want to put one point out here. For producing 1 kg of husk rice, 2,688 liters of water is used. India exports about 37 lakh tons of basmati rice. It's equivalent to exporting 10 trillion liters of water. 10 trillion liters of water exported just in rice. So what is the whole world working to? There's a new concept come out, virtual water trading. India is a net loser in this because we are exporting more than what we import. So we are exporting much more water than we export. And agriculture is the biggest consumer of water. It is the biggest, about 70% of the water consumed across, fresh water consumed is in agricultural sector. The other big impact is coming from climate change. I think climate change, increased warming, droughts, safe use of wastewater, because, you know, how do you use the wastewater which comes out? How do you use water efficiently? Food systems, food wastage, 1/3 of the food is wasted in the world. This is an average statistic which is available. So you can just imagine how much water is also wasted because water goes into making that food. We need to change our habits. So basically, while the government and industry and academia and NGOs like ma'am, while you are still working on these challenges, I think we as individuals need to see how we become responsible corporate citizens for it. The second part of the question, I just thought I'll answer it, is on the war on water. The war on water already started. And if you ask me, the war on water, some of the fights are there for the economic benefit, some are for strategic reasons, some are for potential resources, and some are for actually taking on the mineral and wealth in the sea. I think that is a big thing that is happening. And some of the fights happening, I'll just give a glimpse of it. Fight over the Ganges water between Bangladesh and India, Jordan River Basin, China and India's fight over the Brahmaputra, the Nile River between Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia. These are all real life already happening as we talk, and they will get more intense. As water gets more scarce, people are going to say this water belongs to me. So I think it is going to be a very important thing. So UN has said that 2 billion people live in areas which have got scarcity of water, 2 billion people. And they are predicted by 2030, about 700 million people are going to be displaced because of scarcity of water. They'll have to move to different areas. So I think these are real life challenges. The cross-boundary water disputes will need to get resolved. There'll have to be a shift in mentality of how people deal with it. And we need to see like how oil and power we move to renewable. We have to see whether we can do the same thing in water. And I think that is something which has to come. A social awakening amongst people needs to come. Thank you.
The next question, I'll request Dr. Suhan to answer.
No, it's...
The next question will pose it to Mr. Ramesh K. Mr. Ramesh K can take the next question.
Yeah. Good afternoon, distinguished panel members and all the viewers. My question to Mr. Ramakrishna sir. So what was the thought behind founding Maitri Aquatech?
Very good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Ramesh, for asking this question. And the inspiration has been that, like, for the last couple of decades, we have all been seeing that a lot of articles were coming in the newspapers about the scarcity of the water or the contamination of the water across India and across the world. And at the same time, there were also a lot of newspaper reports about children dying because of the contamination, or a lot of people dying because of lack of water itself in Africa and all that. And simultaneously, while I was traveling in all over India, world, and especially in some of the nearby districts to Hyderabad, I saw that women were traveling almost few miles to get water,
Yeah.
and even for pots of water. At the same, so what was happening? We were having dual challenge. One was the availability of the water, the quantity of the water available, and second was the quality of the water. The challenge for the quantity of the water was because the groundwater was overexploited. There was hardly any water being left, and rainfall has become very irregular. So that's one of the challenges. On the other side, you have a lot of issues concerning regarding the quality of the water. Like if you see entire eastern belt of India, we have an arsenic problem. There is a fluoride problem in Nalgonda. There are traces of uranium in Srikakulam district. So you have large quality water problem and a quantity water problem. On the same side, there are a lot of reports which say that there are billions and billions of gallons of water available in the atmosphere in the form of humidity. And so there is a mismatch, there is a requirement, and there is a technology that can convert the humidity available in the air into a potable water. And that's where I thought, being an engineer myself and being worked on that, so I thought, why not we do something about it? And there were also globally some work that has been done right from 1910. The first patent regarding the condensation technology happened in 1910. So, but the commercialization of the technology has never happened. The technology was never brought to the people, and the common one could never get benefit out of the technology. So what I did is, and what we did as a team is that we started working on it. We started doing R&D on that, and then slowly over a period of time, we developed a prototype. We got success. Then we realized that the biggest challenge is not the machine in itself, but the potable water. The quality, we have to address the quantity issue. We also have to address the quality issue. So we started making machines right from a small machines of 30 liter to a 1,000-liter machine. Then we partnered with the Indian Institute of Chemical Technology for a proprietary patented technology to remineralize the water. That's where we could look at both the quality and the quantity problem. And that was I think the initial challenges were the first inspiration for me to get into AWG. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. That was indeed very insightful. My question will be to Mr. Naveen Mathur. What is an air-water generator, which is also known as AWG? And tell us about its models and its impact, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sohani, and a very good afternoon to everybody. Like Mr. Ramakrishna pointed out some time back, there's always a lot of humidity in the atmosphere. In fact, research shows that less than 1% of the water which is available in the atmosphere is actually enough to fulfill the entire global needs of mankind. Now, what is happening around us? We are impacted by climate changes and global warming. And global warming is also bringing about a certain shift. What is happening due to global warming? There is more evaporation of surface water bodies, and this leads to more water available in the atmosphere in the way of water vapor. So on one side, you already had a scenario where there was enough and more water available. Global warming is only adding on to this. So there was an absolutely urgent need to tap this resource, because if there's a possibility, if you are running dry of surface water resources and groundwater resources, the best opportunity for us was to tap this humidity from the atmosphere, and that is what an AWG is all about. AWG is the technology which essentially taps the humidity in the atmosphere to generate water. So if I have to explain it in a very, very simple manner, what we are doing is we are using technology to replicate the natural water cycle. So the natural water cycle, as we all know, involves evaporation, condensation, cloud formation, and then there's a rainfall. So what we are doing is the humidity which is there in the atmosphere, we are pulling it into our machines, new filtration. We are ensuring that the essential minerals get added to that. That is where our tie-up with IICT is there. In fact, what we can do is customize dosing. For instance, tomorrow there is any particular location which has a specific mineral deficiency. We can ensure that we greater quantities of that particular mineral while ensuring that the water meets WHO as well as Indian standards for potable water. Yeah, we have also applied for patent for this technology.
Okay.
Now, the beauty of this technology is that it is using a perennial source of water, that is the air, the humidity in the atmosphere, which can never get depleted, unlike other solutions which are available. So it is a completely environmentally sustainable solution with absolutely no exploitation of existing water resources, scarce water resources. Neither are we generating any kind of waste using this technology. Now, in order to generate water, machines need some kind of energy. So this energy can come from the normal grid, or they are also compatible with solar or wind. So if so one can say this is a completely green solution to ensure that you get water on a sustainable basis. Now this technology is highly scalable. We have solutions to cater to different requirements of people. So whether it be somebody wanting, a household wanting maybe 30 to 40 liters of water per day for their own consumption, to large format organizations wanting, 2,000, 3,000 or 5,000 liters. In fact, using this technology, we can generate even up to 1 million liters of water in every single day.
Wow.
So it is a completely scalable technology, which is and decentralized. Now, the beauty of being decentralized, the technology being decentralized, is that when it is decentralized, it's kind of generating water which is oven fresh. Sitting in the comfort of your homes, you can generate your own water. And in today's times, in the times of this pandemic, this is an extremely important use, because people are practicing social distancing. People are not very comfortable with multiple contact points, so they are not very comfortable with getting water from outside. You can do this by installing this in your own house, and it's a simple plug and play solution. All it needs is some source of energy, and you start getting water. Now, in terms of the quality of water, let me just touch upon this point. The water generated from this technology is the purest form of water.
Right.
You appreciate this. This is water which has actually never touched the ground. We are all used to consuming water which comes from ground, right? So there's a possibility of microbiological contamination. Now, since there is absolutely no contact with the ground, and it is water which is we are harvesting from the air, this is absolutely the purest form of water. This technology appreciated and approved by the Ministry of Jal Shakti through the Mashelkar Committee. We have also installed this in a large format at the station in Secunderabad. So what we are doing that is in fact in line with our Prime Minister's vision of being water secure. We've put this in a kiosk format in the Secunderabad railway station, and any commuters or people can get water on the go. The purest, the freshest, healthy water, mineral enriched water, which is available for them on the go. Now there are of course various other applications, various other places where this technology is very, very beneficial. Essentially wherever there's a water shortage. So in fact, our first installation happened in Rajasthan in the Institute of Development. And this is an excellent opportunity to respond in case of any national emergency, flood, a cyclone. Because typically what happens whenever there's any emergency, your infrastructure, water infrastructure gets affected. And so what we could do is put Meghdoot. Meghdoot is our machine, which means messenger of the skies. You need to do is we put it on a flat body truck, move it around, and you can get water on the go. So if I have to explain this literally, suppose we were to put Meghdoot, we are on a goods train, and take it from Hyderabad to Chennai, it can keep generating water, and by the time you reach Chennai, you'll have water.
Wow.
So that's the beauty of this technology. We have a lot of traction in defense sector and remote locations where they don't have access to water. They're looking at it and using it to meet the requirements. So right from, in my mind, the entire spectrum, right from, the domestic segment, from homes to offices, to varied applications such as hydroponic farms. We have people who are interested. They've deployed this as a CSR initiatives in communities. There are huge opportunities in a country which is tremendously water stressed. And if sometime back Niti Aayog came up with a report saying that mid of 2020, that is, I think we are in the middle of it already, and maybe next 1 or 2 months we would probably see the full impact of it. 21 of our large cities going to go dry of groundwater. So that's, the situation is so bad. Chennai has already been facing day zero. There are a lot of problems in Chennai, a lot of problems in Bangalore, Hyderabad. We face a lot of problems, and so it's very important for people to look at such technologies which do not exploit existing resources, but harvest something which is available freely for use for all of us. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naveen. That was an amazing sharing that you did. I mean, purest form of water is going to be available for everybody, which is superb, fantastic. Well, and my next question would be to Mr. Richard Rekhi, please. What are the various applications in which this technology can be successful?
Thank you, ma'am. And I think that's a good question, because to some extent, Naveen has already answered some of it, where he spoke about in military and in scarce water places. I'll try to supplement some of the things that he said. I'm not going into too much detail. I think one of the big areas where the company has found a huge amount of interest is healthcare, medical and healthcare, because they need pure water. Like he said, it's the purest form of water. And considering all these airborne and waterborne diseases that are there, especially affecting the hospitals, and they need that clean kind of sterilized atmosphere, I think it's big interest out there. So this is a big area, I would think, number one. Number two is all kind of movements where you move people across, whether it's a military movement or any mass scale of movement of people. And there is water challenge. We heard Mr. Ramakrishna talk about people walking miles to get water. So you get water, you can put this machine, it gets plugged onto a power source, which could be battery, it could be any kind of energy source that you have, or solar, and you can get water, pure, clear drinking water. The other point I want to say, countries like Middle East, North Africa, which are challenged and are stressed because of water. And in fact, in Middle East, the most expensive item you buy is a bottle of water. It's the most expensive on the table. Once you're eating your food, even sometimes more expensive than the food that you're eating. But people don't drink water there for that reason. So they drink wine or so
beer.
Beer, yes, beer. You're right. Yeah. So I think Middle East, North Africa, and many other countries like this, the West Indies, you take Papua New Guinea. I mean, a lot of these places which are water stressed, the opportunity can be there. At large educational institutions, because parents, schools want drinking water for their children. I think it's going to be there. Factories, large offices. And also, one point I want to leave here. This is while it's an old kind of thing which was developed long back, but the application has just now been done by people like Mr. Ramakrishna, who have gone ahead boldly and gone into it. It's new to that extent. And when anything is new, we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. Once this gets popular as drinking water, I can see huge amount of applications coming out of this. R&D will come in, and I can see this being used on the agriculture sector, which we spoke earlier, that is a large consumer of water. I can see a large application in that sector also. So I think we're just seeing the beginning of a revolution. And I think I would like to leave it at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Vivek will ask the next question, please.
My next question is to Mr. Ramakrishna. Where do you see the air water generator as a technology moving from 5 years hence? We know it's about 3 years ago that you launched your company, but in the next 5 years, what are the milestones you see achieving, sir?
No, it's a very interesting question because that's what we keep debating, where we will be after 5 years. Because, but if you see, there are some of the data points that are available today for us to have a reasonable idea about where we will be at the end of 5 years or in 5 years of our journey. One is that today, 50% of the hospital beds globally are occupied by waterborne disease patients. 80% of the children, the disease that they have are all waterborne. And today, as Mr. Richard Reiki was telling in the beginning, Singapore is talking about 3 months of food security. But if you don't have monsoon for 1 year, where is the question of how are we going to survive? There is no source of storing the water. And there are a lot of places which have no place to store the water, or there's no groundwater, and also the groundwater may not get recharged with a small rain that we are having. So today, there is an urgent need to build parallel source of water, another source of water, which is different from groundwater or a surface water, and which is sustainable, and which is can also have a scalability. And the water, and wherever the water is, should be available in a distributed form. So if you see that, I think there is a new category of water that is coming into the world that's called air water. So the air water is going to have a larger application because it's coming from a unit which is going to be very distributed. It can be from, as Mr. Naveen was telling, you can have a small machine of 30 liters in a house to a 1,000,000 liter plant. So that air water category is going to dominate. The advantage of air water, as both the earlier speakers were also trying to tell you, that it is pure, rather the purest form of water. Then we have a remineralization technology, which makes it much better, because any other water that we get it from RO plants or some other plant, there is no minerals in the water. So here is the remineralized water. And the biggest advantage that we are going to get in our water is we can tweak it to the need. Like suppose I was telling, like there are children and we can give them a calcium fortified water, more calcium fortified water. If there are pregnant women, we can give them a more magnesium fortified water. So the tweaking of water can happen. And one of the application that I see that going forward, we will be able to build an application where, depending on the geography, depending on the need of the particular population or whatever it is, we can tweak the quality of the water meeting the requirement. There can be a lot of artificial intelligence applications coming and all that. And then as the world grows and the water shortage comes, there will be a requirement of monetizing the water resources. So a lot of IoT based applications will be built so that people become sensitive towards the consumption of the water. So air water is going to be one of the biggest source of water going forward from 5 years from now. That's what I see. Thank you.
Great, awesome. My next question to you, sir. Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, among the 21 cities to run out of groundwater by 2020. We are already in the 5th month of the year. What is Maitri Aquatech doing about this? What is being done in other water-stressed countries such as South Africa, Iran, UAE, Oman, Botswana? And what is our Maitri Aquatech doing to elevate this problem, sir?
This question is to me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, like wherever there is a water shortage, of course, Chennai is on the top of the list in terms of water shortage, and so is Cape Town, South Africa, and all that, which have already seen the day zero, and rest of the cities are going to follow very shortly. So, we have to divide the water on the basis of the requirement. I think the primary responsibility of the country is to make a healthier country, a healthier India, suppose from an Indian perspective. And a healthier India is not possible without quality water. You got to provide them a safe water. So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to talk to the local policy makers, sensitize the policy makers that here is the source where the billions and billions of gallons of water is available. We can't convert them into a potable water. And I think slowly we have to make this water available at an affordable price. And we are trying to have initial dialogue with a lot of policy makers at almost all the major cities, trying to sensitize them, telling that if you can give us some subsidies in the form of power or something, here is Maitri Aquatech, which can build a 1,000,000 liter plants also. This is the same thing we are trying to do with even South African government and many of the African governments also, trying to tell them that we can give you millions of liters of water because you have the humidity. and there is a need for it, and there is most of the water is contaminated. Right from, you look at it, Bangladesh today, one of the biggest not only arsenic problem, but they have a large sewage treatment water getting mixed, and there's a lot of municipal water quality. They become a big, they're all in the public domain about quality of the water in Bangladesh. So all these countries can address this through our technology, and we can build and we can scale it up, and we can run on the renewable energy. So we can run on solar, as Mr. Richard Ricky was trying to tell, that we can run this on solar, we can run it on wind and hybrid power, and some of the larger conflict that he was also referring earlier can be resolved if the common, see today the migration that we was talking about by 2030, 700 million people will be migrated. Okay. So that can be, this is what exactly the data points we are trying to give it to the governments at both at a central level, at a state level, even some of the global level, at international level also, we're trying to do the same thing. That here is the opportunity for you to explore another resource. And also the most important thing is this can be a plan B. Initially we can start with 1%, 2% of the water coming from air water, but eventually we can take it to 10, 15, 20%, so that the dependence on the groundwater comes down, and we allow and we save something for the future. This is what we have to invest in the future also. There is a responsibility for us for the future generations also. So this is what Maitri Aquatech is trying to do with all these governments and government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. Ramesh, is by Mr. Ramesh K, please.
My question to Mr. Naveen Mathur, what are the essentials? How are you going to penetrate 28 states and 8 union territories? Please explain how your company with marketing and distribution support of Lynx, Lawrence and Mayo and other distributors will increase the reach of this technology. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ramesh. I think that's a very interesting question. See, as a company, we believe that we are working with a number of strategic partners in India as well as globally to grow the business, because the opportunity is huge. So we are looking at people who have a good footprint, a large customer database, existing customer database, as well as organizations which are working for various specific sectors. We have experts who are working in the field of CSR. There are others who are working specifically in pharma sector, others who are working for the hospitality sector. Everywhere an opportunity exists. So to answer your question, we definitely looking at, we have collaborated with a number of partners, and Lynx, Lawrence and Mayo is one of our strategic channel partners, because, I would say that with the experience and the expertise that this organization brings, 143 years of rich experience, a national footprint across 14 states, and foot soldiers, I think there are about 250 people in the field working in Lynx, Lawrence and Mayo. Dr. Vivek, you can correct my numbers. I don't know.
You're absolutely right.
It's fine.
So I think there's a huge opportunity, and I see that there's a huge opportunity for synergy, and working with Lynx is a natural fitment for us.
Great.
Not only to reach out to the existing database of over 1,000 customers which they have, but also tapping new segments which are there. So I'm sure together, along with Lynx and other channel partners, this should soon be a Fortune 500 company. They should feel that. I'm confident of that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, my question to Mr. Richard Ricky, sir.
Yes.
Do you feel that it is time for Big Four to write a white paper on the air water generator, a possible water solution in these challenging times? What are your thoughts on the same, sir?
See, thank you very much, Ramesh, for the question. And I think it's interesting to understand why the Big Four role that they play today in helping new technologies, new ways of working, new business models coming up. I think so. This is a big role that the Big Four has played over the number of years, and also brought about a lot of change in the way work is done. I mean, the entire outsourcing, if you see what happened globally, I think Big Four had a huge role to play in that. But the first thing, before I get to answer that question, I think it's important to know water is a forever problem. is not a problem for today. It's a forever problem. And if it's a forever problem, I think what Maitri has done is it has actually innovated and come with a completely new technology. I mean, it is like doing magic. From air, you're taking out water. When people first hear it, they wonder whether they heard me right when I said that, you know, the water is taken out of air. Now, people who are in the business understand it more, but people who are not in the business. So this is not only technical subject, but it also requires a lot of awareness amongst the lay people and telling them what can be done. So on the one side, we can see Maitri becoming popular amongst the businesses, governments, armed forces, etc., where the sales will take place. But when we want to have larger applications, a product alone will not stand the test of time. I know Maitri is working with TERI now, where they are got a joint kind of proposal to see how the impact on sustainable development goals will come and how can this technology actually help meet that. Because water scarcity is a big challenge. And companies like Maitri can work and hold leadership positions in trying to deal with the water scarcity problem as a whole. And I think that's where consulting firms like Big Four will come to play. They will naturally get attracted to this. See, because Big Four find solutions and they will come to a company like Maitri, which is an innovator, and will come and say, okay, we would like to talk about this and write about it. And so I can see Big Four, I can see other consulting firms also coming forward and talking about it, other influencers around the world who will be talking about it. So like I said, and if you ask me, during this period, COVID, the one thing that has come out, I think in the beginning of also Dr. Swani, she said about the immunity system. I think so clean water also helps build immunity system, good immunity system. So I think this goes a big way. So post-COVID, I think the use of water, the SDG has become a big area of concern now. Climate change has become a big area of concern. So I think people are going to move to this more clean drinking water. And we can see, in fact, we'll see one of the consulting firms coming forward and saying, we want to write a paper on this. Thank you.
Super, super. Thank you so much. My next question is to you again, Mr. Richard Reiki.
Yeah.
With COVID-19, which has been a complete shock in climate change, global warming, do you think the populace of the world will learn to respect nature and its sources like air, water, and earth?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I think all of us would have realized in these 2 months of lockdown, a little over 2 months of lockdown, how the air became so clean. And
Right.
we suddenly saw birds and we saw flowers bloom and we saw animals on the road, which we never saw before.
Never.
And we wish, and in fact, somebody sent me some pictures of Bangalore. I'm not an old Bangalorean. I moved to Bangalore only lately, but all the old Bangaloreans said it looks like we're back in the 50s and 60s when Bangalore was clean and not there. Similarly, pictures from Chandigarh. So I think what COVID did was that if we can deal with clean the atmosphere through clean air and not pollute the air and give back to nature what is nature's. Now the question comes up is, as we go back to our business, are we going to be as disciplined to ensure that what we have gained in the 2 months, we don't lose? And I think that is, and was this just a fleeting moment?
Right.
And also the question which people keep asking, what is this new normal we are going to? And I threw a counter question to them, that was that the new normal or is this the new normal? Is this
Fantastic, yes.
is this the normal? Did we go to a wrong normal because was heat and everything overtook us and made us go to do things which we didn't want to do? So I think this whole sustainability is going to bring disruptive changes.
Right.
I would like to quote out here from a person who I really admire on sustainability, a gentleman called Paul Polman, who used to be the ex-Unilever chairman, who says business leaders must recognize that in global value chain, there is no way to outsource environmental or social responsibility. On the contrary, multinational companies can and must use the extended supply chains to drive change and improve the quality of life in the market in which they operate. I think this is a very powerful statement.
Very well said. Very well said.
He was one guy who, through sustainability took Unilever to its height to which it went. They had a challenge in the first 2 years, but after that it went there. So I think we are going to see a circular economy coming here, where you take, when you buy the item, how do you get it back, the waste management, the whole, I mean, the product is never goes waste. It just goes in a circle. That's why it's called a circular economy. So it's just use. So you use it, prepare it, reuse it in whichever form, and never waste it. So I think we're going to see that. We're going to see less use of chemical substances. You're going to see more betting on renewable energies. This AWG is going to become a big, and that's why I think AWG, the time has come for it to be mass used by people in a much bigger way than restoring forest, achieving a reliable, affordable, sustainable, modern energy for all. And I think we're going to see people committing to the health and well-being of the planet. So leaders will have to walk. You know, the one question which came up from one very big investor in the world who kept saying, I will not use his name here, who kept saying that, you know, for me, it's only shareholder value. And but I think the world is today saying it's not about shareholder value, it's stakeholder value. And it is going to be that you will have to think of the well-being beyond the four walls of your company. You'll have to think of society. And I think this is what COVID has actually been a wake-up call to the world. So in many ways, you know, people said, was COVID the actual the vaccine, and are we the virus? So, so I mean, that's the way life is. And with that, I think I will end so that you can ask the next question. Thank you so much.
Super. Dr. Vivek will ask the next question.
My next question, I'm going to make it a two-pronged question. We saw the cyclone Amphan, and immediately there was a huge water crisis of normal drinking water. So my question is to Mr. Amin Mathur. Can you answer that? And my second part of the question is, electricity meters for our schools, apartments, and commercial and industrial establishments are built at different rates. Will we see water metering catching up in a big way? And is that the correct way forward? So two parts to that, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek. I think that's an extremely pertinent question. Now, people value what they pay for. If you do not pay, you do not value anything.
Right.
In my mind, it is the need of the hour that water metering comes up in a big way. And in fact, whatever indices one is seeing globally,
Right,
will definitely catch up in a big way, because water is the next big crisis which the world is going to face. So actually what has happened is that, you know, traditionally it is the governments which have been keeping this artificially cheap. They have been giving subsidies and absorbing the costs. So ideally, just like electricity as a utility, when you are paying for it, you are paying commercial rates for it, you're paying high rates for using the service. Logically, the same should be done even for water.
right.
Now, what's happening? This the developed countries are already realizing this and making a change. In fact, if one has to look at US alone, in the last decade, the water rates have increased by over 50%. And globally today, if you see, there is the total metering, water metering, which is being done, close to about, it's moved to from about 5 billion in 2019 and is expected to increase by another 50 to 60% in the next few years. So yes, more and more people are getting aware that there's a shortage of water and they need to get the respect back into water and conserve this scarce resource. So water metering is the only way ahead. Another thing, what is influencing this is the growth of smart cities. Because smart cities, you need a smart solution. And that's what, you know, with a decent quality of life. And people realize that if you're providing a service, if you're providing water, high quality water, there are people are ready to pay for it.
Yes.
So people are always ready to pay for it. And that is, I mean, even if you look, that is how the packaged water industry has been growing also in India and globally, because people realize that they are paying for that additional value. So again, to answer your question, definitely, I think this is extremely important and this is the only way ahead. Thank you.
Would you want to touch on the cyclone Amphan question, sir?
Sorry, I couldn't quite...
I said when the cyclone Amphan hit West Bengal recently, The headlines in the newspapers was that they faced a huge shortage of fresh drinking water. So is your company geared up in crisis like this to meet these crises?
Absolutely. In fact, during the cyclone, also there are a couple of NGOs who approached us. One of the very large international NGO approached us, and they were wanting us to provide our machines which move around in the flood-affected areas, and basically put it on a flat-body truck and provide water. So I think to answer your question, in any such natural disasters, this is the best solution.
Right. Thank you very much.
And I think more and more people should look at it. So what's actually happening in India? I just want to bring out another.
Please.
Essentially, what's happening in India? See, most of our natural disasters are known well in advance. In the sense, you have, for instance, you have regular floods in Bihar. You have regular earthquakes happening in North India. Now, when it's happening, we need to be, we rather than reacting on a natural disaster, we should actually be proactive and be prepared to have an infrastructure to take care of a natural disaster. So, in fact, I would urge organizations like the NDRF, to look at probably keeping Meghdoots in locations, strategic locations, and being war ready. So, because like they say, it's only at peacetime when you should prepare for the war. So, it's a very good opportunity, and we definitely need to see how we can explore this.
Great. Thank you for the answer. I request now Mr. Ramesh K to take the next question.
Yes, sir. My question to Mr. Naveen Mathur, sir. What is your marketing strategy in India, and how many partners you have tied up with, sir?
See, our game plan, we have come up with this beautiful technology, the best solution the world could find to the huge crisis that we are facing. And obviously, our game plan is to reach out to the maximum number of potential customers, not only in India, but globally, so that they can get access to the best quality of water at a very affordable price. Now, if I have to look at an overall plan, essentially in terms of a product perspective, we are already, I would say, since we are part of the Make in India initiative, every component, the last screw is made in India. From a capex perspective, we are very economical.
Right.
Even from an OPEX perspective, we are, the running costs to generate water are the lowest for us. Having said so, because we are an R&D company and we have a set of engineers and research scientists from IICT who are continuously working 24 hours, night and day, they're just thinking, dreaming, breathing, product development and product improvement to see how they can probably get better efficiencies, better output. So those, those are initiatives being taken from a product perspective. And partnership, we already spoke about. So what we are doing is we have a two-pronged strategy.
Yes.
We have a number of partners, strategic partners, like I mentioned earlier, both in India as well as globally, with whom we've tied up to reach out to various customer segments. In parallel, what we are doing is some of the large global customers and government entities, we are also trying to reach out directly. So it's a two-pronged strategy which we are doing. Now, in terms of, since you've asked marketing strategy, so I'm trying to touch on all the P's of marketing.
Sure.
Remind me of good old Kotler days. So we spoke about product, we spoke about distribution, we did speak about pricing, and in terms of our communication strategy, we are using digital in a big way. So, all platforms, and that is what we intend to use in a much larger way, both directly and as well as through our business associates. I think even Link, Lawrence and Leo has been doing a lot of good work, using the digital media.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really, really, thank you for sharing. My next question is again to you only, Mr. Naveen Mathur. In comparison with packaged drinking water, I mean, we see packaged drinking water everywhere, you know, in plastic jars, which is available in offices and at corporates. How is Maitri Aquatech product offering it?
I think that's an excellent question, Dr. Suharni.
You know, because we are all being environment friendly, eco friendly, so
No, that's a beautiful question, and you know, often people feel that since this is a technology, a new technology, the water would be very expensive. But
Right.
surprised to know the details. Let me share some statistics with you. If you were to buy a liter of packaged water, it would cost rupees 20 in India. If you were to buy water in bulk, that means if if an organization or individual buys a bulk water, which is typically available in 20-liter jars, it would cost anywhere between 60 to 90, depending on the brand, you know, which is there, which translates to about 3 to 4 rupee 50 paisa per liter.
Right.
Now, as compared to that, our water is available. The operational cost for generating 1 liter of water is less than 2 rupees a liter.
Oh,
Right.
super.
And so one is the price aspect. The other thing I must touch on the environment also, because that's very, very close to my mind. Whenever you're buying packaged water, two things are happening. You're harming the environment. You're harming the environment because you're burning fossil fuel in transporting water from point X to point Y. Vis-a-vis Meghdoot, which is decentralized and you can generate water wherever the requirement is. The second thing is, packaged waters, at least most of the players in globally use technology which wastes a lot of water. So that obviously is not very environmentally sustainable.
Yes.
And the third thing is about plastic itself, because packaging in plastic and ferrying it in plastic, there is the entire issue of plastics as well as the associated issues of microplastics. There's a lot of study being done saying that they are carcinogenic, they're harmful, and obviously the harm that they bring about to the environment. So overall, what I essentially want to say is, if somebody wants good water, healthy water, mineral enriched water, one should look up to the skies and one should look up to the roof. Thank you.
Yeah, and one should look up to the magic what Maitri Aquatech is creating. Well,
Thank you.
Now we request Mr.
Ramesh K.
We request Mr. Ramesh K to ask the final question, please.
Yeah, is this technology sustainable? Is it a green technology? We do not want to see more plastic bottles in rivers, nalas, and on roads. So I request, who will answer this question, please? From the panel,
Mr. Ramakrishnan. Mr. Ramakrishnan.
Ramakrishna sir, please
Please
answer.
could you answer this question?
Can you kindly repeat the question, because
Yes,
the
sir.
connection was...
Is this technology sustainable? Is it green technology? We do not want to see more plastic bottles in rivers, nalas, and roadside.
This technology is completely green, because not only from the water side, or also from the producing the water can be from solar or wind. And whatever, even if you take grid power, the water is being generated from atmospheric humidity. So there is no exploitation of the groundwater. And this water can be transferred in any pipe. This thing is because a very, very distributed network. There is no need to carry this in a plastic container. People can have it with the point of consumption itself. And so the technology is completely green. And the whole thing is that for even in a household, today there is no need for having, even in a factories or a large offices, there is no need for having a 20-liter bubble tops and all that. People can have a simple plumbing line and have water generated in their house or a office directly. So the whole chain of plastic can be avoided totally. And even on the sea, we have a very interesting installation that I think is worth mentioning here. Is there is a Society for Sea Coast Management, SEACOM, and which manages all the sea beaches in the country. And we have got our machine right on the bank, on the beach near Dwarka. And the idea is that they don't want the people coming there to bring the plastic bottles. So the whole beach is full of totally plastic free, and there is only one machine that is there of our machine where people are filling and having water and drinking. So slowly, wherever, even in places like temples or in tourist places, we can put these machines right in front of those places and make those areas totally plastic free. And people can have the water. And the biggest advantage, another thing that I would like to tell you, in a plastic, you're compelled to buy a liter of water, and then you have it, half of it. Sometimes you throw the bottle and also the water also. Here you can take what, say 250 ml can be a minimum thing that you can have, or 100 ml, and then only you use what you want. So there's no wastage of water, and there is no plastic also.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now we'll be moving forward to a little bit of excitement. So we're going to have the rapid fire round questions where we would request our panelists to answer in a word or maybe a few words. Okay. So if you all are ready, can we start?
Sure.
Yes, are we ready? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to start with the rapid fire round. The first question is to Mr. Richard Reiki. Describe water in one word.
Life.
Ah, super. The next question is by Mr. Ramesh K.
Yeah, my question to Ramakrishna sir, will government solve our water problem or should we do it ourselves?
No, I think we have to do together.
Yes,
The common responsibility, both of us have to act together.
right. Dr. Vivek.
Market potential for Maitri Aquatech, Mr. Naveen Mathur.
I would say we draw water from the skies, and sky is the limit in terms of
Okay.
Super.
Very poetic on Saturday evenings.
Super. My next question is again to Mr. Richard Reiki. What is the solution of drought in our country and in the world?
Honestly, I can't answer this in one word.
Yes, I know.
But,
Please.
but I think if you ask me, actually adopting new technology like this air to moisture, from the moisture you withdraw this water. I think this is one solution. But I think there is many more things which need to be done on the drought side. I think drought cannot go away, but drought can be dealt with. And I think it will require a lot of things like rainwater harvesting, drip irrigation, including harvesting from the air, what we just spoke about, and then solar. And so many of these things actually coming together would support that case.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Ramakrishna, please ask, Mr. Ramesh, please ask the next question.
My question to Ramakrishna sir.
Yeah.
Tip to the audience listening to this live on Facebook, how to save and conserve water, sir?
I think the first thing is use only what you want. Don't waste the water. So there should be a efficient water management system, and we should also not use potable water for every purpose. My biggest thing is that the conservation of water is important, but more important is conserving the safe water. So let there be a different usage of water, what is used being for utilities and what is used being for the safe drinking water. And the safe drinking water should be very used selectively, and also make sure that we do the rainwater harvesting in a way, and water management is done properly, and we don't lose water in the leaks and all that.
Awesome.
I just want to add to that. Use Meghdut to solve all the problems.
Mr. Naveen Mathur is the excellent CEO who's putting in the plug here. My next and last question, the rapid fire round. Will the glaciers melting in Arctic and Antarctic will give us more drinking water, or will be a huge disaster, Mr. Richard Reiki?
Yeah, so this is a trick question, I would say. But honestly, the disadvantage of the glacier is much more than the positives. There are some positives. Switzerland has come openly and said they see a lot of positives in it. There's a report in New York Times of saying what benefits they will get out of it. But I can see, the water level rising, the sea levels rising. many people, main source of water is the glacier. Unlike India, which has monsoons and all, we have different sources, but many countries on the glacier. And if this glacier start melting, the water will dry up and they won't have a source of water actually. So it's a disaster. If you want one word, it's a disaster.
Right.
Right.
So, dear panelists, thanks a lot. We've really had an interactive, interesting session. I request you to see the chat bar. There are plenty of questions which our IT team has pulled in from Facebook Live. I'm going to show two videos to our audience, both of 30 seconds each. And then we will come back to answering the live questions. Great. So that was film number 1, and we will now see the next film. Right. So thank you for watching those two films. Now I'll request the panelists to look at the questions in the chat bar, and the questions which have come in from different parts of the country. Question number 1 from Anisha Yadav. I want to ask a question to Naveen sir. How much water can be generated in an hour?
Excellent question. Actually, we have different.
Mr. Mathur, I think your audio is not
yeah.
on, sir.
We have. Okay.
Mr.
It
Mathur,
is on.
we're having an audio problem from you.
Can
sir.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
No.
Yes, we can hear.
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear
Please
me
go
now?
ahead.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yes. So to answer your question, we have Meghdut comes in different capacities, ranging from 30 liters per day to 2,000 liters per day. And like I mentioned earlier, we can also generate up to 1 million liters per day using multiple such units of Meghdut, right? The larger units which are there. So I would not like to answer by saying per hour, because typically, you know, it's a 24-hour process, and it would not be linear in terms of the water output. There are times when the humidity is more, but over a period of 24 hours is when we
Krish,
it's a certain amount of water subject to conditions.
just come play the video again.
Next question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have another question?
Yeah, we have another question. We have another question. It's coming in from again back to the life of the machine. How long is the total life of the machine?
I think that, can I answer that? I think it should
Please
be
go ahead.
18 years.
Yeah, please go ahead.
That we haven't gone through such a long tenure, but it should be minimum 15 years, because there are not many moving parts in the machine. So
Right.
at least 15 years.
Right. The next question is from West Bengal, Malda. How can farmers get rid of arsenic and iron in water?
No, I think because the water doesn't get in touch with ground at all, so the water that we produce is from the atmospheric humidity. So
Right.
it is anyway, there is no arsenic or iron in the water, because it's a totally DM water that we get it, and then we remineralize it as per the requirement. Like for some of the agricultural purposes, we are adding micronutrients or water soluble fertilizers and all that. So I think because of the way the water is produced and the technology that is being for harvesting the water, there is no chance of any arsenic or iron or any other chemical or a hard heavy metals being present in the water.
Right. I think we got a
And to
feedback
add to that,
from
Dr.
Facebook. Some audience couldn't see the video, so we'll just play the video once more. If there are any more questions from the audience, we will just share it again. Because Mr. Ramesh Daswani very sweetly pointed out that he could not watch the video, so we'll just watch it again.
Dr. Vivek, I just wanted to add
Please.
to what Mr. Ramakrishna mentioned.
Right.
See, today, in terms of existing other technologies which are there, they are all technologies which exist for purification of water. And there is no technology which actually solves arsenic water. So in areas like Bengal, Bangladesh, where there is arsenic water, there's always the peril of the water which you're consuming still probably has some traces of arsenic content in it.
Right.
In my mind, in those places, this is the kind of technology which should be used where, you're not dependent on groundwater, but water from the air, which does not have arsenic content.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Let's
you.
watch the video and requesting Krish to share the video, please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's come.
Now.
This is just a small initiative which was taken by our company
Right.
during the lockdown. Essentially, we provided free water using Meghdut. So you see Meghdut on the truck,
Right.
and we provide the warriors, COVID warriors, as
Right.
well as to the migrant workers. So this was our small bit.
Sure, sure.
Super.
You can explain about the second video. We'll just watch the clip, sir. We'll just watch the second video. Go ahead.
That's a kiosk at Secunderabad. Pick up water from there.
Great. Closing remarks from
Dr. Suhani.
First of all, I'd really like to thank all our Facebook viewers who've been with us. I'd like to thank the entire Maitri Aquatech team, Mr. Richard Reiki, Mr. Ramakrishnan, and Mr. Naveen Mathur. I'd like to thank Links Lawrence and Mayo team too. And my closing remarks would be, make the most of the magic which Maitri Aquatech has created. It is for our environment, it is for us, it is for our future, and it is for our future generations. So come on, let's get together and make this magic happen. So this is Dr. Sohani Mendonca from Tetsuvi Spa Meet signing off. Until we meet again next week with an exciting session with Links Talks. Thanks you once again, and see you all. Have a God bless evening and stay safe. And the most important thing, be positive. Bye-bye. See you.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, all Maitri team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suhasini.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.